Hey everyone, today I'll be going over resumes. My resumes so far have gotten me interviews at Johnson & Johnson, Disney, and Frog, among other companies. So I hope these tips are able to help you as well. I also plugged in the description of this website called Cofolios. It's a resource that shows the portfolios and resumes of people interning at top tech companies to this very day as a means of inspiration and to get a glimpse of what others are able to do. But here's a quick disclaimer before we start. It should be known that these things I go over should not be held as gospel or anything, because these are just some key takeaways I've had from reformatting my resume and my design career thus far. I hope that these are able to help you, but what might work for me may not work for you. Also, let it be known with design, you can be rather flexible in terms of how you go about formatting and designing your resume. That's not to say standard business ones you can't. I'm just saying it's not as black and white and rigid as if you're submitting, say, investment banking for Morgan Stanley. So let's get started. So before we dive deep into the sections, I feel like I should give you a broad overview of resumes and recruiters as a whole and more general advice. If you'd like to skip this section, feel free to check out the description or to check the timestamps on the video itself. So continuing, on average, recruiters look at your resume for 6 to 7 seconds. They also utilize ATS or applicant tracking system software, which they sort, scan, rank job applicants for their open positions. The ATS software system parses through specific keywords to determine if a candidate is good enough to be passed along to a recruiter. So this ties into another tip I have. This would be, you should definitely avoid proficiency bars. I'm not talking about when you write your level of proficiency in languages on a resume, if you choose to do so. I'm talking about when you list off a bunch of skills and then use a graphic in which you indicate your ranking on a scale of 1 to 10 for your proficiency. It's a problem because people do not know the metrics you're basing the rankings off of, and that it is a bunch of white space that could otherwise be utilized in displaying other valuable information. On the white space note, be sure to decide for yourself whether a 2-column or 1-column resume is for you. I like 2-column because it allows me to show a bunch more info, rather so it is less cramped rather than top down. While that is the case, I find that top down 1-column resumes are more ATS friendly overall, as oftentimes it says I'm the co-founder of Camp Figma, a design competition I was at a while back. Some people have 2 versions of their resume. What I mean by that is they have a simple Word document that parses through Talio or various ATS softwares. In addition to that, they may have a more laid out one that visually communicates their design knowledge from customizing it overall. In terms of formatting, if you made a personal logo or have a personal brand, add that. Some friends have brands that are their initials, among other things. It adds a bit of a more flair to their resume, as not everyone has that going for them. It's not a requirement by any means, but it's an interesting way to show your distinction from others in the crowd. Sometimes with formatting, people like to bold numbers that quantify their experiences. I used to do that for recruiters to dart to numbers, but I don't do that anymore. So branching off of that info, I know other people hyperlink their portfolio, whether it's projects, their LinkedIn, so it's a click away. Other miscellaneous tips would be to read the job description on these posts to get a sense of what skills companies are otherwise looking for, as it'll help so you're able to model your phrasing broadly after the company you're applying for. It also allows you to see skills and tools that companies are seeking from potential design interns at this time, and how you fit in the grand scheme of things. I would say keep it to a PDF so it does not jumble when it comes to existing software such as Word. For naming the PDF, I just keep it to name_resume or name_position_resume, so it's easy for recruiters. Now we'll dive into the sections. So at the very start, you're going to include a header at the very top. It should include your name in large font, followed by an intro, say title like product designer, UI UX designer, follow alongside with your website link, email, and contact info. I'd follow that up with professional experience thus far. It allows you to show that you're experienced in the field and have relevant experiences. So put down the name of the company, position title, location, and the duration you spent interning or working at the specific location. With the experiences, it's important to quantify them. What I mean by that is to show your impact by not just saying, oh, I worked with a lot of people, but I worked with X amount of people on a product or service that served this many users, so recruiters can get a glimpse of scope and scale of projects. On that note, it's important to use action verbs rather than using generic verbs. Also, make sure these are set up in reverse chronological order. So here, I'd list off college or university in addition to relevant coursework if space permits. In this section, I'd showcase anytime you're placed on Dean's List, receive a scholarship, reward, whether it's a medal or reward from a hackathon or design competition, among other things. I know people here oftentimes flesh out reward or recognition they achieved alongside the approximate timeline of when they received it. A description definitely helps things out, as it allows for someone glancing at it to get an overview. Following that up, we have leadership. I often put leadership in terms of organizations I'm involved with, whether it's on campus or pre-professional elsewhere. It shows places I've taken a lead and rose to the occasion in showing my dedication in terms of time and commitment over an extended period of time. Make sure to quantify these achievements here too. So, a bit of a disclaimer about the two I'm about to mention. Some people just combine skills and toolkit into one category and just have it in terms of design, research, and languages and application used in designing. But I will be going over my approach. For the skills section, I generally divvy it up by dividing it up into skills that I use for design and skills that I use for programming. Even if UI UX does not equate to coding, I sometimes apply to UX engineer positions. From there, another category I would put would be Toolkit. For Toolkit, I broke it down into prototyping tools and Adobe Creative Cloud and listing them out appropriately. As previously mentioned, I know people mix Toolkit and skills and sometimes play with this section otherwise. Skills to consider adding or reworking to this section could include the following as headers: interaction design, prototyping, programming, user research, visual design, and listing some applications for each depending on the scope of the role you are otherwise applying for. Going back to miscellaneous, I know for headers, sometimes people put interests, so recruiters or people viewing can get a glimpse as to the candidate they are viewing outside of work. Also, if space permits, sometimes people also put languages that people are proficient in or projects they've worked on, whether they are case studies, other projects, or something else. It definitely allows for a lot of things for you to play around with. But that would be a run through of resumes. While it covers each part, know that while the framework of it is there, that everyone approaches the visual design aspects of it differently. People may play around with information architecture and their overall formatting. I'd say if you play around with them and find one that works for you, you'll be able to set yourself up on a great path. But thanks for tuning in, and as always, don't forget to be awesome.